Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Heng. Today is Saturday, the 3rd of May, here on the Gold Coast of Queensland. It is Friday noon, 2nd of May, back in California. I'd like to welcome you cordially to our picture biography lecture series, The Life of Master Empty Cloud, Xuyun Lecture. We are going to first make 3 half bows to the Buddha. Invite you to join me if you care to do so. And followed by that will be our fearless coordinator and corresponding secretary, Chanyu, who's going to request Dharma. So let's do our 3 bows now. Here we go. First bow. Second bow. And third bow. Okay, Chanyu, if you would like to request Dharma, please go ahead and do it now.
阿弥陀佛，恭请大德僧听，为此法会集一切众生，请转妙法轮，教导我们如何了生脱死离苦得乐，速证无生。Will the Sangha with great virtue, out of compassion, for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to live suffering and attain bliss and end birth and death, and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Namo sadanto suchedoye alahadi samya samputoshe.
Namo sadanto suchedoye alahadi samya samputoshe.
无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered even in billions of eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. 好的。那Chanyu继续感恩 Thank you for the Dharma request. Appreciate that. I'd be happy to turn the Dharma wheel. This is a wonderful series. It goes like this. Our grand teacher, our teacher's teacher, lived to be 120 years old. And in that 120 years, which spanned 3 centuries, he had incredible adventures, incredible obstacles, life-threatening dangers, and with his faith, and sometimes just with his tenacity, just this grit that he had, that he never quit, he was able to overcome them and become probably, I think undoubtedly, the most celebrated Chan Zen master of the last 300-400 years. And our teacher, Master Xuyun took those 120 years and extracted 200 episodes from Master Empty Cloud's life and wrote about them, brought them up in a format, then added a verse, a 4-line verse to every one of those 200 episodes. Then he commissioned an artist in Hong Kong to draw a simple, charming ink line sketch for each episode. Altogether, it became our 2-volume book called The Picture Biography, The Life of Master Empty Cloud. So we are taking that book, and because the stories have a certain length to them, so there's a lot, it's pretty terse. The stories are essential only, there's no extra. And so when it's time to focus on each episode and tell the story, we get to add a lot of color and a lot of, put the flesh and the blood on the bones of the skeleton. So there we go. Let me say to those who want to listen in Chinese, 如果各位呢，你们想听一种流利的普通话的翻译，你们想听国语的话，我所讲的英语，我们有义工很发心把我讲的英语翻译中文。那个控制板的右下角有一个叫interpretation， 那里可以找到 Chinese 就好了。Also, if you would like to hear a Vietnamese translation of my English, we are happy to accommodate you. One of our fearless translators has kindly offered to put their time in and translate my words in English into Vietnamese. So go to the chat box, you'll find a link to that Vietnamese translation. Furthermore, should you, like Chunyu did today, wish to translate, if you wanted to request Dharma in the future, we would be really happy to accommodate you. You go to the chat box and there's an address, an email address. Shoot an email over to Chunyu and we can set you up. If you can only request in one language, we will provide the other language. Sometimes we have special situations. We have a mother and son, and the son provides the English and the mother provides the Vietnamese. So we're happy to accommodate, give you a chance to request Dharma. Okie doke. Now, I have some more housekeeping news, which is this time next week, I will be in the air, returning to California. So next week's picture biography lecture is going to be postponed for a week. So please tell friends who may not be here yet today. I'll announce it at the end of the lecture too, that next week's lecture is not going to happen because the lecturer will be traveling. But when I'm back in California, I'm hoping that folks will, because we're online, it'll be transparent. You won't even notice that I'm in a different place. Here in the Gold Coast, we've been meeting here in the library and having wonderful experiences of getting to watch the Jie read a story to her Didi while they're listening to the Dharma. How wonderful is that? But otherwise, our translators will still be translating kindly. At the same time, our tech folks will be putting a lecture online, and I will be sitting all by myself up in the second floor library of the Berkeley Buddhist Monastery at noon time and on a Friday, which is a very interesting time, and explaining, let's see, no, I take it back. No, I'm taking it back. For me, it'll be Friday in the evening. That's so we can keep the time here, 12:30 consistent. It'll be 7:30 on a Friday evening. I'll be upstairs in what we humbly call the broadcast towers of the Berkeley Buddhist Monastery. It's just my desk in my office in my library. So hope to see you then. Okay, moving on here. We're going to, got the wrong indigenous group. Let's replace the Pomo people with the Kombu-Meri people. Okay, there we go. To say that we respectfully acknowledge the Kombu-Meri people of the Ugambi language region as traditional storytellers and custodians of the land where the monastery is located. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and all First Nations people whose sovereignty was never ceded. 就说我们恭敬地承认与冈贝语族的空布毛利人，他们是这里这个寺院所在地的传统属世者和守护人。我们向过去、现在和未来的长者们致敬，并且从来没有放弃主权的第一民族，我们向他们的原住民致敬。Okay, further. Bell sound wide resounds throughout 100 million worlds. The Buddha's law is heard and spread all throughout the triple world. The wondrous sounds that everywhere fill the Dharma realm with peace. May those who hear it gain the strength to follow in faith the Buddha's path. 众生传3000劫内，佛法扬万亿国中，共训其法界和平，利益报贪恼后的。Okay, and happy birthday to the Buddha today and tomorrow. Tomorrow is the actual day, it's Sunday. It's Monday. Monday is the actual day, which is Monday here or Tuesday, Monday here. Sunday in CTTB. There we go. So we're one day ahead. So Buddha's birthday, otherwise known as Wesak, it's that holiday that Buddhists celebrate. And the situation is very interesting in the Buddhist world. You can, if you live where I do part of the year in California, you can attend 4 or 5 different Buddhist birthday celebrations. The Chinese day follows the lunar calendar. The Vietnamese day is a different date. The Korean date's a different date. The Burmese, Thai, Laotian date is a different date. The Tibetans do it Losar, a different date. So that's if you like to bow to the Buddha and bathe the Buddha, you can really get clean every year in California. So here at Gold Coast Dharma Realm, we bathe the Buddha today, and this is the day when all lay people can come. But the actual day on the calendar is a Monday. So come up. Okay, now we've got our announcements. Please tell your friends that next week there will be no lecture, but the following week we will continue as always. Okay, glad you're all here. Thanks everybody for joining in. We have some absolutely gobsmacking, mind-boggling stories today to tell. My goodness. You just wonder, how could they behave that way? That's the thoughts that arise. Here's the story. Master Empty Cloud, typically sacrificing his own comfort, has got himself into a pickle, and in order to save lives, he just absorbs the pain. What happens? He's on a ferry boat going across a river out in Sichuan province. And as he lets everybody get on the boat before him, and it's a small ferry boat. Don't think of an automotive ferry crossing from Seattle to Vancouver. It's not like that. This is a wooden boat. You can see in the illustration, this is probably pretty close to what it is. There is a ferry boatman who poles his boat across the river from one private dock to the other private dock, probably what it is. So today, the day that Master Empty Cloud and his friend, Jie Cheng Fa Shi, want to cross the river, there's a lot of fellow passengers. Well, the monk, just naturally being very courteous and self-effacing, lets everybody get on board first, including his buddy, Jie Cheng. He swings his duffel bag full of robe and possessions, there's not much in there, over to the boat, but then as he is about to step on board the rope connecting the ferry to the dock snaps, and he pitches over, but he grabs the gunwale. He grabs the side of the boat with one hand. Now, ordinarily, most people would say, "Help save me at any cost," and people would lean over and pull him on board. The boat is so fragile, so small, that if he were to do that, the whole thing would tip. He would capsize the boat in getting in. So what does he do? He simply stays in the water. He stays in the water, and he is dragged across the river, and his feet are cut on rocks and barnacles and probably stumps and sharp edges. So when he just doesn't try to get in the boat, he's content to just be dragged through the water. This is how the guy does it. That's how he rolls, because were he to say, "Save me," he could endanger the other passengers, and that he would not risk that. So I'll take the short end of the stick. That's the way he lives his life. As a result, here's Master Hua's poem. He says, "Pan chuan cong liu du ku e." Du ku e is lines from the Heart Sutra, right? Guanyin Bodhisattva, Xingshan Boro Bolo Mido Shi Jiao Jian Wu Yun Jie Kung Du I Che Ku E. So Guanyin Bodhisattva, when she was cultivating the wisdom that goes beyond, looked down from on high and saw all living beings bound up in the five heaps, and her compassion arose, and she took them across, ended their suffering and their distress. Well, Shifu uses those last three lines to describe Master Empty Cloud's willingness to take on others' pain for their benefit. 衣湿祖破血染河, clothes soaked, feet broken, blood stains river. Do you need a further translation? That's the word for word Chinglish, right? His clothes are sopping wet. His feet are cut open by what's on the bottom of the river, and his blood stains the flow. 晒金官风天寒雨. Okay, the third line, he gets to the pass called Shaijingguan. This is a geographical place in Sichuan. 风天寒雨, and he meets heavy rain and cold. So the weather turns nasty at this point. His clothes are wet. Every step he's leaving bloody footprints, and now he's soaking wet. And what happens? 旅店不留生且也. The hotel, the inn that they knock on the door to let them in to get out of the rain, looks at two wet, bleeding monks and says, "Sorry, we don't accept monks." Slams the door. Clinging to the boat in the river, he crossed over, suffering and misery. His clothes were drenched, his feet were cut, his blood stained the river. Arriving finally at Shaijing Pass, where it's cold and raining, they went to an inn, but Sanghans were not allowed to stay. Okay, that's the backstory. That was last week. Now, as I said, it's a preview of coming attractions when we get to read the verse. So here are the details. Take a look. Can you imagine? If this were us, if this were you, if this were me, what would we do? 巨挂单宿戏台下. 宿戏台下. Being refused lodging, spending the night under a stage. It's the 28th year of the Guangxu reign, the last of the Chinese emperors. He's 63 years old, Master Empty Cloud. It is 1902. The Boxer Rebellion has just been suppressed. He is 63. You ready? Here we go. 街外有庙，锦衣僧入，求宿不纳，令宿门外戏台底，地潮衣湿，天寒肤冷。 向僧买禾草，驮来2把尸杆，烧之不着，忍之。与戒师坐而待旦，埋苦荞巴，时而充饥。忍者足痛，仍然向前迈进也。Off the main street there was a temple, but only one bhikshu in residence, and yet that monk refused their request for lodging. As a result, they spent the night outdoors beneath a stage. The ground was damp, their clothes were wet, the freezing rain continued, and they shivered in the cold. They purchased some straw from the monk in the temple, who gave them 2 wet bundles, which would not burn. The master sat patiently with Dharma Master Gyachun until dawn. They bought some coarse buckwheat to ease hunger. The master endured walking on his painful feet. Even so, they made progress on their pilgrimage. Okay, this reads just like a list of misery, right? One thing after another. It's cold, he's wet, he's wounded, he's hungry, and to add insult, he's cheated by the local monk. The poem above said an inn, but in fact, it's not an inn. We need to retranslate this. Liu Dian, they went for lodging. It's not to a jiudian, it's a monastery, which makes it worse. They went to an inn, but Sanghans were not allowed to stay. By who? By a Sanghan, right? By a fellow monk who, according to the rules of the Sangha, has the only reasons that you don't allow a guadan, a monk who is on a journey, a guest, a visitor, is if they don't have a precept certificate to prove who they are. But Master Empty Cloud is known far and wide. Or if they have a communicable disease, perhaps, you could ask them to stay in the back room, but you don't refuse them. You don't say, no, we're not taking anybody here. So, but that's what happened, and here's the illustration. Here's probably the city square, the village square. There's a bandstand. Many small cities, small towns in the Midwest of America, in the East Coast, there will be, you look for the church steeple. That's where the center of town is. And especially in New England, there'll be a tall church steeple, and in front of the church there will be a market square. And often there's a bandstand. The church is where you hear the hymns and the religious music. The bandstand is where you hear the 4th of July marches and where the local high school has their graduation, etc. So probably a similar situation in Chinese village. So here they are underneath a stage. Now, is this where, mind you, Master Empty Cloud is a national hero? He's already an enlightened monk. He's the most famous hermit. 3 episodes ago, we had him meditating for 2 weeks without moving. And when that word got out, so many people came to see him and bow to him and ask for his favors that he slipped out in the darkness of night to avoid being courted by all these folks who wanted favors from him. So none of that matters, because this particular monk at this monastery doesn't let them in. Now, in his defense, maybe he sees that this monk is bleeding and he doesn't want to, he doesn't know the story, and so he's protecting himself from getting involved in something dodgy. Maybe that's why he doesn't let him in. It's hard to know the reason. But the fact is, here are 2 noble monks. Master Gyachun is well known, and yet somehow this monk says no. So they endure. They just wait it out. So one of them says, I have a solution. I've got a few coins here. Let's buy some dry grass and make a fire. let's buy some kindling and make a fire. So they go knock on the door, and the monk who refused them entrance takes their money and gives them the solution to their cold problem, so they can light a fire and get warm. Except the grass is wet, and he doesn't know it. Of course he knows it. He's just being deliberately cruel. So they can't burn. They waste their money and they get some wet grass. Doesn't burn. So what do? Well, they take their last couple copper pennies, and the next day at dawn, they go find someone who will sell them buckwheat. What does it say here? It's ku qiao. Okay, ku qiao ba. It's the worst, the least digestible grain that they can buy, just to put something in their stomachs. And what does it say? Ren zhe zu tong. He just endures the pain of his wounds, no medical attention. He's hungry, he's hurting, he's wet, he's tired, cold, and what does he do? He just endures. What are you going to do? Who are you going to call? Ghostbusters. Nope, can't do that. 忽然山上放红光，金沙江里已似黄。普贤大士多奇妙，观音菩萨圣机章。Crimson light glows from the fire-burning mountain, Horan mountain. Golden sand river holds a pure yellow hue. The great bodhisattva Samantabhadra is most rare and wondrous. Revealed are Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara's holy relics. So interesting how Master Hua takes this story. This is monastic abuse, right? These would be grounds for a lawsuit, probably in other occupations. But for monks, what is Master Empty Cloud thinking? My guess, I would propose, he is probably saying to himself, this is my karma. Somehow I have offended this monk in the past, and so I owe him what I'm receiving now. In no case is Master Empty Cloud looking out to blame the monk who is mistreating him. He is probably more concerned for his companion than he is for himself. He's saying, my guess is he's probably saying, oh, Jie Chen Fa Shi, I'm sorry, I apologize. This is my karmic retribution, and I brought you into it. That's probably what he's saying. You're suffering because of me. If you showed up being a monk who doesn't have this particular 那个怨孽障, right? This karmic obstacle with this particular sangha, you would be greeted. You'd be warm. You'd be able to eat when the monks eat and sleep when the monks sleep. But this is my karmic obstacle, my yezha. So I've dragged you into it. I apologize. My guess is he's saying something like that. But in any case, Master Hua, in his poem, attributes Master Empty Cloud's selfless endurance and his power to two of the great bodhisattvas, Samantabhadra and Guanyin Bodhisattva. So he says this is the patience that brings to perfection your work in the way. There are, Shifu Master Hua would often praise the Dharma of patience. So let me, not only Master Hua would, but the Avatamsaka Sutra really praises patience. We are studying chapter 39 of the Avatamsaka Sutra here it's a Sunday, California it's a Saturday. And the story has a pilgrim, another pilgrim, whose name is Sudana, And he's going to all these different teachers. He sees a total of 53 teachers in all. And to each one, he asks a set of questions. He says, how do I practice the practices that bodhisattvas practice? How do I walk the way that bodhisattvas walk? That's his 2 questions. And each of the teachers in turn respond by asking him a question. They say, young man, have you made the Bodhi resolve? Have you set your heart on enlightenment? Have you explored your potential to maximize your own wisdom or not? And Sudana in every case says, yes, I have. I did that with Manjushri Bodhisattva when I started out. So then what happens next is each of these teachers in turn gives him their method of practice that allowed them to wake up and become enlightened and awake. So the various answers are incredible because the people who he meets include, they started out with 3 monks in a row. There were 3 monks. We just had an elder who was a speaker of Dharma in a village, and when he saw Sudana come forward, he got down off his Dharma seat and bowed to the student. The teacher bowed to the student. Next we get an elder whose name is Liberation, and then onwards. There are nuns. Of the 53, 21 of the teachers are female. He meets Guanyin Bodhisattva. He meets Maitreya Bodhisattva. But the reason I'm referring to his story is among the next several, I think it's 2 more ahead, he meets an upasika, a lay woman, and she is very demure, is the word. She's very plain. She's wearing only a white robe. She has 2 attendants who are very subdued and calm and patient. And instead of, well, I'll give you the contrast. There is a Brahmin. Sudana meets a Brahmin. His name is Insatiable. Insatiable heat. This Brahmin worships the 5 fires, which is a part of Brahmanic practice. And he subjects his body to the mountain of knives, and he throws himself into the boiling oil, and he burns his body under the sun. And so super, super dramatic, and even you could say terrifying. And then he further goes down the road and he meets a king. And this king is super cruel. Inside his city is a torture chamber. And the people in the city who misbehave get thrown into this pit with all of the cruel tortures, and they suffer incredible distress. All of these different adventures, all these different encounters that Sudana meets. He meets a ship's captain. He meets a courtesan, a prostitute. He meets some teachers who say nothing at all. One of his good advisors doesn't even move out of samadhi. He just teaches with silence. He meets spirits of the night, and they talk about how in past lives they met this Buddha and served him and then made the Bodhi resolve, on and on and on. Incredible stories. Upasika Asha, whom he meets, what does she do? She teaches him patience. And what is patience? What's her Dharma door? She brings forth this little pitcher. And it's small in capacity, kind of like a teapot. It's small and it seems very unprepossessing compared to kings with their cities and Brahmins with their mountain of knives. But she says, good man, once you learn how to cultivate my Dharma of patience, it will bring you every single reward in the way that you've ever dreamed of. Try it, she says. And so Sudana is inspired by this. I'm giving you previews of coming attractions. We won't get to this Upasika in sequence in our story for a couple months, but lecturing every week. But as Sudana learns how to use the Dharma of patience, from this humble vessel comes all kinds of marvelous offerings and incense and robes and flowers and candles and lamps and adornments and food and all of the aids to cultivation of the way, dharmas that aid the way, 助道之法. So sure enough, the Upasaka's humble picture, patience, brings the reward of all that you seek. So my point is to say, even the Avatamsaka Sutra praises patience, gotta have patience, don't get angry, sopoha, as the fundamental dharma that all cultivators of the way have to master. And when they can, then they reach success. So here is Master Empty Cloud doing just that. Not complaining, not blaming others. 人天有人, no. He's not saying their fault, your fault, right? My election was stolen. He's not saying that. Phony press, fake polls. He's not doing that. He 回光返照, he reflects, he turns it back and looks at the situation from his own shortcomings. And as a result, what happens? More of his Buddha nature is revealed as the covering of the self is reduced. Every time, Shifu would say, every time we take the short end of the stick, the self, the illusory self, takes a loss. And in the Tao, that's a step forward. That's an advance. So the world will tell you, oh, you got to be a winner. I'm always a winner. Lucky winners. Everyone a winner. Right? Well, the winner mythology simply adds a layer to the self, this illusory constructed self that keeps us from great compassion. So with patience, we can reduce one layer of this notion that I'm in the center of the world, I'm the most important one. Master Empty Cloud knows that's not true, and so whatever comes to him, he says, yeah, I should take that because that's my due. And if I can bear this patiently, then indeed the self takes a loss, the Tao advances. So I think that's the magic going on here. That's why Shifu praises with Samantabhadra, most rare and wondrous, Avalokiteshvara's holy relics. Master Empty Cloud is approaching those bodhisattvas' virtues. What happens next? You ready? Here we go. This is episode 127, Fuxing Monastery, blessings. Fuxing means blessings arise, monastery where blessings arise. Gong Bi Guan, going into a seclusion state. Ready? Want to join me? Here we go. 朝鸡足山树下宿，复闻石门内于庆生。翌日金顶尽相逼，复念佛祖道场，衰败如斯。全点僧规堕落，发愿睫毛皆重，又被子孙寺庙所禁。涕叹复昆明，曾宽慈流祝福心，闭关戒施护度岁。Okay. On a pilgrimage to Chickenfoot Mountain, the monks spent the night under a tree. As before, inside the stone gate, the master's presence evoked the sound of a wooden fish and a large bell. The next day, having offered incense on Golden Summit, the master contemplated how this way place of the Buddhas and patriarchs had degenerated to its present state. He witnessed all over Yunnan province the neglect of the Sangha's moral rules. He resolved to build a hut and receive traveling Sangha members, but the local hereditary monastic system prevented him from doing so. The master sighed and with tears in his eyes traveled on to Kunming. At the request of Upasaka Sun Quan Si and with the support of Dharma Master Jiachan, the master stayed at Fortune and Prosperity Monastery, where he went into seclusion and passed the new year. Okay, so what's going on here? Let's take a look at the illustration. Here he is, here's a monk passing through a city gate. This is Kunming Fu. So this is the city gate to Kunming, which is a large city in Yunnan. This would be Western Australia. In America, it would be New Mexico and Arizona. Southern California. So he is walking through the gate with his companion, being greeted by a layman. Now, what does the story include? They're walking out of Sichuan on further south to the very south of China, Yunnan, which fronts Thailand and Burma there. And one of the famous monasteries is Jizushan. It's connected to Maitreya Bodhisattva. And this is the second round. After Master Empty Cloud's conclusion of his 3 Steps, 1 Bow pilgrimage, he also traveled this way. And when he arrived, a miracle, according to the local legends, took place, which is there was a story at Jizushan that Maitreya Bodhisattva is hiding inside. They say he has taken refuge he's not visible to ordinary eyes, but he's inside. And the legend goes that when a cultivator with real gongde, with real daode, virtue in cultivation, shows up, there will be a sound. There will be a ringing of a bell. And it hadn't happened for many, many decades. When Master Empty Cloud came and bowed at Jizushan, the bell tolled 3 times. And who remembers those old stories? Well, there's enough people who do. They said, ooh, who is this? Suddenly this bell rings out in empty space to indicate somebody unusual has arrived. So that was what happened years back. Master Empty Cloud went on back up to Beijing and slowly made his way through to eastern China and the north. And now he's come again. His karma has brought him back to Yunnan. And he is, Jizushan does it again. The miracle happens, the ganying, the response, and a bell sounds. Now there's a wooden fish, dong, 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 playing. So is it the mountain? Is it the spirits? Is it the bodhisattvas? Is it Master Bodhisattva Maitreya, whose Dharma protectors are acknowledging another awakened monk? So he goes to Jinding on Jizushan. He looks around, and you know what he sees? He sees really, how do you say it? Its conditions are not good. The Sangha has forgotten the rules. Their practices are corrupt, and corruption in the Sangha means that there's all kinds of ways to describe. The most common way to describe corruption would be that the monks are panyuan. They are climbing on conditions, becoming opportunists. When Master Hua would describe this, he would say, so the worst thing you can do is set lay people against each other. What you have to say to one chef is, oh my goodness, when you offer 那个素菜包, your 素菜包, Mrs. Wang, are the best I've ever tasted. They're just delicious. I think about them when I meditate. I think about them at night. I can't wait for lunch to come so I can eat more of your 素菜包. And then, as you say that, to praising, did I say Wang or Li? Praising Mrs. Wang's Su Cai Bao. Mrs. Li is listening, and her eyes turn red. And she's thinking, okay, well, I'm going to get my Su Cai Bao recipe up and running. You will see who he likes best. So next week, Mrs. Li offers Su Cai Bao in competition with Mrs. Wang. And so what does the monk do? He goes, oh, Mrs. Li, your Su Cai Bao are just delicious. But you know, what I prefer most of all is I think your Hong Shao Su Yu is really delicious. That's just superb the way you make, Hong Shao Doufu, 那个麻婆豆腐, so delicious. So the monk is there manipulating people in their blind spot, which is praising their offerings. This is illegal in the Sangha, and anybody who does it is unscrupulous. You are hoping to get the lay people to compete, and you, of course, as the monk, get the benefits of people feeding you delicious food. So this is something that Master Xuyun Hua, our teacher, if he caught one of us, monks or nuns, doing the slightest bit of manipulating Panyuan in a kitchen or in the Buddha hall, he smashed down hard and said, 盘元鬼, 你的贪心太大了, 你不知惭愧. He would scold the monks and nuns. He would say, you greedy ghost, you're climbing on conditions. He said, you may not do this. And this is the end of the Dharma. So, Master Empty Cloud, that's one example of what's called corruption in the Sangha. Or it could be even worse. It could be that the monks are manipulating the local magistrate and getting the magistrate to devote money to rebuilding the temple, or to adding a wing, or to inviting the monk out for opportunities to meet the local nobility, the local big families, etc., etc. So it's usually what he's looking for is money or conditions. Let's say 骗色,骗钱, right? Looking for opportunities to break the precepts. So in any case, Master Empty Cloud looked around and he saw this was happening in Yunnan province. And what did he do? He said, did he just criticize? No. He said, I'm part of the solution. I want to build what was the Chinese? He said, 结毛棚. He's going to build a hut which will be a pure place so that monks like himself and Master Jiechun passing through can stay without being turned away, without being invited to join the corruption, without being gossiped about in an attempt to attack them for fear that you will expose the corruption. All of the things that happen when people forget virtue when they forget to cultivate the way. So he said, I would like to build such a place so I can receive traveling Sangha members. I'm going to create an Airbnb, a jingshe, right? A pure place for travelers to live. Guess what? The local hereditary monastic system said, no, you won't. So what is that? What does that mean? Traditionally, when a monastery was established, the Sangha would decide who was in charge. And sometimes every province has a 佛教管理机构, a governing body for the province. And then, now I don't know if at this point we could find out when the date of the 中国佛教协会, when the Buddhist Association of China was established. It may not have been in 1902. Because Master Empty Cloud was part of the founding of the 佛教协会, I think it didn't exist. So it would be locally. When a monastery needs leadership, the local elders, the Zhanglao, who have been in robes for over 10 years, maybe over 20, maybe 30, maybe 40, some as many as 50 years in robes, they come together and they say, who has virtue? Who has cultivation? Who is able to lead without prejudice, without preference? Who is able to uphold the Sangha's monastic rules? They will give that person the job of perhaps the Fangjang, the abbot, or perhaps they'll make them the Jinyuan, the manager, or they might make them the Caitou, the head of the kitchen, or all the different jobs, the Weinuo department, the head of the ceremonies. So there's a lot of responsibility in a monastery that is given to the people with talent and without people who are pure in the precepts. So that's the way, since the Buddha's time, that the Sangha has survived 2,000 years to this point, right? So it's a good method, it works. You take virtue and seniority as the standards. And if an abbot, the abbot himself determines how long he is in charge, if he can find it, because being an abbot is a difficult job. You don't get much time to cultivate. You have to deal with the local politicians. You have to deal with the monks in the community maybe misbehaving, young monks who don't know how to cultivate. You have to set the model. You have to assign all of the possessions of the monastery, the robes and the bowls and the stores. So it's a tireless job administering a monastery. And so monks often would pass it on as soon as they could when they saw a talented young person. Now, what's wrong with Yunnan here is 被子孙寺庙所禁. 子孙寺庙 says, instead of giving it to monks who had virtue or seniority or wisdom or talent, you give it to someone either who is related to you by blood or someone who you recruit to be in your party. So political factions can grow up inside of monasteries that are too far away. And when you are in Beijing or Shanghai, Kunming and Yunnan seems very, very far away. And when you're in Kunming or Yunnan, Beijing and Shanghai seem very, very far away. Hangzhou seems, a mile away, just miles and miles away. So that has happened. Hereditary nepotism has replaced virtue and seniority as the reasons for the power of the monastery to be passed on. Master Empty Cloud says, no problem. I will build a place and we'll just let our monks live there when they come by. Well, the local powers that be, the mafia inside the monastery said, nope, sorry, we're not going to give you a permit. You won't get any materials. You won't get any builders. We know them all. We have the market sewed up tight. So please move along. Can you imagine saying that to Master Empty Cloud? If he were allowed to build his maopeng there for monks, that would be a stone in the boot of the monks who want to keep the profits coming in. They want the corruption to continue. So they don't want that irritant, like having a lace-up boot that's got a pebble inside, and every step you take, you can feel the stone in your shoe. That maopeng would be just that for the corrupt monks. So they don't permit him, they don't allow him to build his maopeng, a simple hut so that pure monks can stay there. Nope, sorry, we can do without you, please move along. So he says, Master Empty Cloud, Ti Tan Fu Kunming, with tears in his eyes, he travels on to the city and just says, well, we'll fix this problem later as we can. But he still, it still affects him So he gets to Fuxing Monastery and he says, okay, I'm out. I'm going into seclusion. I'm going to stay in Fuxing Monastery, shut the door, paste paper over the door frame so that everyone knows I have not come out and no one else has gone in. And when you do that to bi guan like this, you have to set up conditions that people will support you. You have to arrange to have food sent to your door. You have to have someone who checks in on you periodically. And the living in seclusion is not a simple it's not a simple proposition. It's very easy in seclusion if you, as a monk or nun who wants to do that, if you run out of blessings, if your blessings are insufficient to support you in that solitary, just like solitary confinement in a prison, it's easy to go crazy. Now, certainly Master Empty Cloud has abundant blessings, so he doesn't have a problem going into seclusion. And Shifu's verse says, 癸卯公年64影响放生有凶机性急好斗伤同类公教念佛受三归. In the cyclical year Gui Mao 1903, the master was 64. A dauntless rooster was liberated at Yingxiang, Welcome Good Luck Temple. By nature, the bird was impulsive and fond of fighting. It injured fellow chickens. The master taught the bird to be mindful of the Buddha and gave it the 3 refuges. What? What chicken? What rooster? We didn't hear about that. You'll have to tune in 2 weeks to get that story. Oh boy, here he is. So, next week, I will be traveling. I won't be able to carry on our lecture for that week. We'll have to wait for the following week. We'll see you again. Maybe we can work out with Chunyu or some other Dharma protectors can be on at this time so that when folks tune in who didn't get this announcement, we can let them know that we'll meet again in 2 weeks, same time, same place, to find out about the magic chicken who took refuge at Master Empty Cloud. All right. Shall we dedicate merit? Please do. Send your wishes out as far as your mind can reach. And happy Buddha's birthday to everybody. We'll see you all in 2 weeks. Tell everybody tomorrow I will be here for the lecture. I hope everybody knows. Next week, 7 days from now, I'll be in the air. Tomorrow, our lecture will continue as always. So see you tomorrow for entering the Dharma realm of Avatamsaka Sutra. Shall we bow to the Buddha? Second bow. Third bow. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. Alrighty, that'll do it for us for today. See you in 2 weeks. Amitofo, everybody. Bye now.